Welcome back to the fourth part of the JavaScript Basics course. If you haven't seen the first part, you may want to check those out. The links are in the description below. In this part, we're going to talk all about conditionals in JavaScript. So if you're ready, grab yourself a cup of tea and let's get started. So conditionals in programming help us decide which route a program should go down. There are two main conditional types. And in this part, we'll concentrate on if-else statements. And at the end of the video, we're going to give you an example of a real-life use case you may come across. So if you see here, we have our variable called number, which is equal to 3. We set that value. Then we have our if number equals 3. Now that's saying if our number variable is also equal to the number 3, we can run anything in our curly brackets. So if that isn't met, if that condition is not met, so in the brackets, this is our condition, if that isn't met, then we won't run the code in the curly brackets. Now you might notice it's a double equals in our condition statement. So here's probably a good time to talk about comparison operators. Now an if statement has to pass a condition to run. In our case, we said if a number is equal to 3, we can run everything in the curly brackets. We use double equals because single equals is used to declare a value. And double equals is instead used as a direct comparison operator. Here we use double equals, but there is also a triple equals operator, and this is for strict comparison. Let's show you that in action. Okay, so we're going to write a variable called number and set that equal to 3. Then we're going to say if, then we're going to use our regular brackets. We're going to say if that number is double equals to 3, then we're going to have curly brackets and we're going to say console.log is equal. So because our number variable is 3 and we're comparing it to the number 3, they are equal. Now if I put quote marks around the number 3 and give it a save, now this is a string. It's still equal. And the reason that that's still equal is because of this double equal sign. It's not strict enough for JavaScript. If we now put triple equals, give that a save, you notice it's disappeared from our console because the string 3 is not strictly equal to the number 3. Now we want to use triple equal as much as we can. This helps us make sure our code is really succinct. Okay, so let's delete that and have a look at another example. So say we have a variable called success. I'm going to set that equal to true. So we have a second variable called failure. This is equal to false. Now if we do the if statements for this, so if we say if success is triple equals to true, curly brackets, we're going to console.log this is successful. We're going to finish it off with our semicolon. If we give that a save, we'll see this is successful. Now if we do an if statement for the failure and ask if that is equal to true, then our curly brackets, we're just going to console.log failure and put our semicolon at the end. We won't get that console log because failure isn't true. Now if we change the true word to false here, we will get it because failure is equal to false. There's also a shorthand for this. So success, if I just remove triple equals true and just have success and save, you'll notice that this is successful is still here. So this is actually saying success equals true, is equal to true. We don't have to use the triple equals true. So it's a bit of a shorthand to get what we want. But there are also other ways that we can compare in JavaScript. So we can actually use greater than and equal signs. So I'm just going to delete this code. I'm going to say var our value equals, let's say 11, semicolon. Now we can say if our value, so in this case our value is 11, is greater than symbol 10, then put the curly brackets, we can console.log our message. Greater than 10. And we should see that, so greater than 10. If this fails, if we say, is it greater than 12, it isn't. We can also have less than, so if we swap this the other way, our value is less than 12, give that a save. Our value is less than 12. Okay, so you can see how this is working. We're comparing if it's equal to, greater than, or less than, then we can output something to the console based on if that statement is true. And here are some other comparison operators we can use. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to, and strictly not equal to. So you could say true is not equal to false, and that is true, because true is not equal to false, then your if statement can run. If we start finding ourselves using two if statements, one after another, using the same variable as the conditional, we should probably be using an if-else statement. So else statements are tied to an if statement. So we'll only run if the preceding if statement fails. So let's have a look at an example of that. Okay, so let's say var is successful equals true. Then let's do our if statement, followed by our brackets, and say is successful triple equals to true. Go the long way. Then have our curly brackets. And in here we want to run a console.log if this statement is comparable. I'm going to say success. Finish off with a semicolon. So we're saying if successful is true, run this. Now, we can run an else statement here. So say this is false. Our code won't run. But we can then say else, curly brackets. You don't need a condition for this because it's going to get anything else that isn't true. We can just then run our console.log. You have failed. And there you have it. The first if statement didn't run because the condition wasn't met, so it falls back to whatever is in the else statement. So that's if-else statements. You don't have to do this condition again because of the false value. So you just do it once for the true, and then else will take the other value. Now you might find yourself chaining if statements together to meet certain conditions, especially if you're doing things like numbers. Now, if you do find yourself doing that, you might want to think about using else if statements. So let's have a look at an example of this. So let's create a variable called our value. Set that equal to 10. Right, so now let's do our first if statement and say our value as a conditional is greater than or equal to 20. So if this is true, we want console.log value is above 20. Now we might do an else statement here. Say else console.log value is less than 20. But we can also run a condition that's an else if, which is kind of like our if. It has a condition that we can attach to it as well. So we can say else if brackets our value is exactly equal to 10 curly brackets. We put a console log in here saying you are number 10. Put our semicolon at the end. So there you have it. So our number is not greater or equal to 20. Otherwise, it would have gone to else, but because we put this else if statement in here, it's gone for this first, and it doesn't run this because the condition has been met here. So next up, we're going to talk about logic operators. We can also make our condition take in consideration two conditions. Using a double ampersand symbol, the and symbol, both conditions need to evaluate as true to continue. So let's have a little look at that. So using our existing code here, I'm just going to add another variable up at the top. And I'm going to call this good to go, using uppercase on each new word. And I'm going to set that to true. Now with logic operators, we can add additional conditions in here. So let's change our value to 20. So we know this first condition at the moment is met or equal. So we know this is met. Now we can use double ampersand in our regular brackets here. And we can say good to go using the shorthand. So we know good to go is true. And we know this evaluates as true. If we change good to go to false, this won't work. So it's going to go down, see if it's equal to 10. It's not. So it actually goes down here. It says value is less than 20, which is not exactly correct now. But you can see how both of these have to equate. So if this was true, and let's say our value is 10, no, say 11 here, you can see that it drops all the way down here. So these both have to evaluate to true, and that's what the double and is doing. We also have an OR operator, and that is the pipe symbol, which is the straight up and down line. And we do that by two of those. So we're saying if our value is 20, greater than or equal to 20, or good to go is true, which it is, run this code. So if I save that, this code is run. If I change this to false, neither of those are now true, right? So it's not going to run this code, and instead it drops down to the bottom. That's and or operators. So the last one I want to show you is the not logical operator. And I've just turned off my ligatures for this so you can see them a little clearer. So if I just remove everything from this first if statement, apart from our value, we could say our value is equal to 11. Triple equals to 11. Or we could say our value is not double equals is strict, is not equal to 10. So this is how we do a not. So for instance, if we had good to go, we could say our value and good to go. Now this would want our good to go variable to be true. So it's actually doing the last one here, because our value is 11, and so if you say our value is 11 and good to go. Good to go is false. So if this was true, we would get that first one. Now we can also use, if we change this back to false, we can use that exclamation mark before a variable to change that to the negative. So if I save this, we are now getting this again because good to go is false. So this is checking if good to go is false because we have the not operator in front of the variable. Now we can also nest conditionals. So let's see an example of that. So if we have a variable called age, we can set that to 18 for now. And we can say is a member. So set a variable is member, set that equal to true. Now we could say if age is greater than or equal to 18, and we could also do and is member here. So this is an alternative to doing that. It's less clean. So we can say if age is greater than or equal to 18, then we can do another if statement in here. We can say if is member, and we could just say is member because that is true. But let's do equal true. Some more curly brackets. Then we can run this console.log you are a member over 18. And at this moment in time, that will be true. We could also do an else in here. So we're saying else, if they're not a member, we can console.log, you are over 18 but not a member. So that's an example of us nesting an if-else statement inside an if statement. Okay, so let's now check out a real use case of how we could use if statements. So I've just added some extra things in our HTML to get this age I'm not robot submit button. I'm going to leave a link to this part of the code in the description so you don't have to worry about typing it out. It's not too important. So in our main.js, what we're going to do is we're going to type in a number here and submit and try to gain access to the site. So how we're going to do this is we need to grab our elements on the page. Now this is called DOM manipulation, and we're going to talk about this in another lesson, so this is not too important. I'll talk through it a little bit, but don't worry, this is not important at this stage. So we're going to create a button, and we're just going to grab it. We're going to grab this submit button by saying document.getElement by ID, and I know the ID of that button is called submit because that's what we named it in the HTML. And we need the input, so let's say var input equals the same sort of way, document.getElement by ID, and it's called age. And you notice that this all looks very similar, so I'm just going to copy this one a few times. It's going to be var input, var checkbox, var verify, and var btn. Checkbox is called robot because that's what we gave it in the HTML, the name. This is called verify. And the last one is called btn. Now, we have all the elements on the page, and we even have some extra ones hidden here. So I've added some CSS. As you can see here, we've got display hidden, so we can hide elements. So jumping back to the JavaScript, what we can now say is we can say that button, we're going to add an event listener to it. Basically all we're doing now is just saying when this is clicked, I know this is a bit further along than we are, this isn't the important part for this lesson, this is just a real use case. So we're basically saying add an event listener, brackets, quotes, click, the type is click. I'm going to write the word function after a comma function, brackets, curly brackets, then we can put our if else statement in here. This is what we're really interested in. We're going to say if the input, so which is age, if the input dot value, so the age value, if that value is greater than or equal to 18, and the checkbox, so this variable here, because we're holding this in our variable, so if the checkbox dot checked, which is just something JavaScript has, dot checked, so if these things are true, we can grab the button that's hidden. So we have a hidden button on this page. Dot button dot class list. So now we're looking at this button here on line 5. We're looking at its list of classes in CSS. And we're going to remove then brackets, exclamation, brackets, quotes, hidden. So what we're saying right now is if we are greater than or equal to 18 and the checkbox is checked, we can remove a hidden class from a hidden element, which is this button here, ID button, hidden. So we can't see that at the moment on the page. So let's try that. If I put in that I am 22, which is over 18, and try to submit, nothing happens because checkbox hasn't been checked. Now if I click the checkbox and click submit, there you can see the enter button has appeared. So maybe now we need some validation. So maybe if we go to our JavaScript and say else if the input.value is greater than or equal to 18, so they're old enough, but, so and, double ampersand, not, exclamation mark, check box.checked. We're saying if you are over 18 but you haven't checked the checkbox, we can say the verify element, which is another element that is hidden on the page. Verify here has that hidden class. We can say verify element dot class list, go to the class list because it has that hidden class on it, and dot remove, and we're doing exactly the same, we're removing that hidden class. So give that a save. So if I'm old enough, so I'm 22, but I haven't checked this and hit submit, now we have please check the box. Now if I hit that now, hit submit, we have our enter button. And there you have it. That's a real life case of when if statements with conditionals and comparison operators can come in handy. And then we're doing something within JavaScript to alter something on the page. Now don't worry if this has gone too much over your head. We haven't done this yet, but I just want to show you what is possible and what you would potentially use conditionals for in JavaScript. We'll be getting to this sort of stuff later in the course, so don't worry for now. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next part of JavaScript Basics.